Those of you who've been following this issue know that the Soils Coalition has presented 5 different options for improving the capacity of contaminated soil in the state at varying levels of contamination. The one that I'm going to be focusing on right now is what we call the COM24 option, which is the ability to reuse contaminated soil at other 21E sites. Next slide, please. What this policy is going to say, and it's in the works right now, is that it will provide the specifications for the reuse of contaminated soils at other 21E sites. And by contaminated, we mean up to and even beyond S2 levels. That the levels of contamination that would be acceptable really depend on the receiving site. Again, we are drafting this right now. Some of the major acceptance requirements include, but are not limited to, first of all, the achievement of a permanent solution at the receiving site. So whatever levels of contamination, however the material is handled and placed, has to be consistent with the response actions required to achieve no significant risk and a permanent solution at the receiving site. The second major element of this policy and this work will include public involvement. And by that we mean not just the municipal approval, but we also mean the general public involvement and acceptance of the work, especially if it's in or near an environmental justice area. Other specific details, the devil's in the details, but those will be spelled out in the administrative consent orders and soil management plans, things like AULs, financial assurance mechanisms, sampling and monitoring, pH, traffic and fugitive dust requirements. Those types of things will be in the ACOs and the SMPs. With that, I will stop because I know there might be some questions before we move on to brownfields. Are there any questions?
Ken, any questions from the advisory committee members or members of the public?
Sorry, Millie, I forgot how to raise my hand. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, you can go ahead and this is informal, so just go ahead and state your question.
Is that the extent of the update on the implementation of the amendments, Ken? Or is there?
Yeah. Well, the key thing is the web page that has the amendments on it with related information. There's a ton of information there. So if you go to that website link, you'll see the guidance documents, you'll see all these materials, you'll see the Q&As. I mean, yes, that is continuously being updated, but that's where the status of what it looks like today.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I know I commented to you directly, and at the LSPA symposium, a lot of LSPs are struggling with is that none of the guidance documents right now or the draft Q&A really address sites that are already in progress and maybe they've done remediation and they've gone through all the investigation. And so unfortunately the guidance right now and the regulations are really almost assuming that you're following the stepwise process and that it's sort of a new site and you have you can make informed decisions about sampling approach, et cetera, that better align with the current regulations and guidance. And so the reality is there's a lot of hybrids out there where people did maybe a mixture of different sampling approaches or how to do confirmatory sampling after they already did remediation that don't fit neatly into either box. And the regs do have a discussion of, well, you can use the mean or something else as long as you can, provide technical justification on the adequacy. And I think the concern is that that's very vague. And when your site might be getting audited, what are people, how are people at DEP going to really be evaluating it? What sort of are some of the expectations for that demonstration, and how does this sort of fit in with REDUA, which is already, a requirement of the MCP that you have to say that your data is representative and usable. So I'm not going to get more into the weeds than that, but I would say that that is an area, because there are many, many sites that have been in the system a long
Yeah.
time. And like I said, they don't fit neatly into either one of these boxes. So I think
Yeah.
it would be really terrific for DEP to contemplate that there's a lot of sites in that situation.
That is one of the questions, or at least one of the questions in the risk characterization Q&A. And I know this has come up before. And Paul, you can chime in at any time here too. But Paul already, as he explained before, was that there was a 6-month delay between the date the regulations were published and when they took effect, to allow the time to either file a permanent solution under the old rules or submit or supplement existing sampling if needed to meet the new rules. And that does include a hybrid approach. So there is leeway in that, and there is flexibility in that.
I think one thing that would be helpful to us in kind of providing additional guidance is if people could kind of provide us some either real or detailed hypothetical cases of, look, we're facing this question, this set of data, this set of circumstances. So it gives us something a little bit more specific to respond to.
Right.
Because I think the Q&As that we've talked about in general deal with it kind of on a more theoretical, bigger picture. So it would actually be really helpful to say, okay, how, hypothetically, what would DEP look for in something like this?
Right.
And so if we can get some, all of you send in some examples of what you might be struggling with or what you think other people might be struggling with, you've got it set. Let us know, and then we can work through that, hopefully relatively quickly.
And I just want to give a shout out of support for the COM24 policy. I think that also really aligns with greener cleanups and sustainability. So I think it's giving people an option that's protective but more sustainable. So I think it's a great progress.
Yeah. So on the first question, before we go to Wendy and then Michelle, Lisa, we definitely, again, we do welcome, we appreciate that question. I think it's sort of like the tweener option, as you stated, sort of bridging the gap between the old and the new. And that, I think, will pay dividends for us to get the scenarios correct, and then also ensure that we have communication with all the regions and the auditors so that we're all on the same page. So that's a good goal to work towards. And then secondly, on the soil policy, I just want to say that incoming in this new role, that was one of the first things on the priority list that it's on my desk. And Ken and Paul and others have done a terrific job communicating with the coalition and also others involved. And therefore, we are also working with the regions, clearly, because regional directors are the ones that execute administrative consent orders. And therefore, we will be supporting and basically carrying through the tenets of what are some of the key issues that need to be upheld as people move forward with administrative consent orders. So thank you, Lisa. Wendy?
Hi, thanks. It's great to hear that the soil policy is being drafted and is making its way through the agency. I just want to put in a request, which I'm assuming would happen anyway, but it would be great at an advisory committee meeting or some other special meeting before it's released to have for stakeholders to be able to have a conversation about it, for DP to present it, and for us to be able to ask clarifying questions and give reactions and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's lots of conversations internally and externally ongoing with this,
Great.
but it is a priority. Our Deputy Commissioner, John Beeling, has said it's a priority. He wants this done sooner than later. Yes, so there'll be a lot more coming on this.
That's great. Thanks so much. I mean, it's really wonderful to see the responsiveness. I know that it's been a topic for a long time, and it's great to see that that it will result in a policy that will be helpful for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy. Michelle?
Thanks. Sort of following on that, and I know John's not a patient person, so if he says he wants it sooner rather than later, then you've got your mandate, right?
Yeah.
So just a couple of, I guess, questions, Ken, in terms of, and I apologize if you covered this and I forgot it already, but timing, always the big question on when you might have a draft and what the
On
department
the
is.
soils policy, the timing of
Yeah,
the soils
yeah,
policy.
sorry, on the soils policy, yeah.
I'm hesitant to pin down a date, but I know John
course.
Beeling was hoping that we'd have something by this summer sometime.
Okay. And
Yeah, so Michelle, we are meeting on a weekly basis
Yeah.
to ensure that we are internally listening to all the perspectives and voices. And directly or indirectly, we also have some other programs that are giving us good counsel. But again, this is mostly focusing on contaminated soil that would be deposited in
Right.
21 East sites. So we have the bulk of the technical and regulatory piece.
Yeah.
But we're looking forward to prompt resolution. And obviously, as Wendy has suggested, and we agree, we should definitely have a stakeholder session where we can actually roll this out and make sure that there is, common knowledge about what we intend to do and how it would work, and it be effectuated again through the auspices of administrative consent orders.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. That was going to be the next part of my question, actually, was in terms of the Soils Coalition involvement or feedback or an opportunity for coalition and potentially others to comment on a draft, perhaps even before it's released in whatever way you can really. I'm not sure whether, how the department intends on doing this, because the policy obviously not draft regs, but in any event, it would be certainly helpful at the very least to have some opportunities for folks to provide feedback.
Yeah, we're not writing this in a vacuum. I mean, we're considering everybody's input and have.
Yep.
So it's just right now it's on a short fuse. So we're going to try and get it done at least as a draft. Like I said, sometime this summer that everybody can talk about.
Great. Thanks. Glad to hear it's moving.
Okay. Next up, I think, is David for Brownfields.